Marianne, thank you for talking to us as part of our special online briefing ahead of the G20 summit. My first question to you is, you actually attended what is called the Civil20, which was held in Moscow earlier this year. What exactly is the Civil20?
Civil society for a long time has been lobbying for a space at the G20. So what happened in Russia this year was the first in the many years that civil society is trying to engage with G20 leaders to have a formal space. So that's basically what it was, this formal space following other thematic working groups like the Think 20, the Business 20, the Labor 20. So very much follows suit in terms of having an established and formal forum for engagement with G20 leaders.
I can imagine that a process such as the Civil20 can get quite complicated, especially since you're inviting civil society groupings from around the world. What was your experience?
Well, I think it was quite successful in that there was very little time to prepare, and with Russia playing as the host to launch the Civil20 initiative, I think many civil society organizations across the G20 were quite satisfied in terms of it being a pilot. And of course there were many challenges, but the fact that there was this space and there was access and a long process planning which actually started in December. I guess one of the biggest challenges was, really being able to do the proper outreach across all the G20 countries, ensuring that there's diversity. A lot of the organizations that were there have been engaged for many years, and it is important to be able to engage as in many diverse organizations and have different perspectives.
Now, there were a range of issues, a range of working groups, but what are some of the issues that emerged for you?
There were, I think, 7 or 8 working groups that were structured, and much of it was in line with the G20 working groups that the Russian government had decided to lead on. So what happened was civil society worked according to similar working groups and adding a few more, like dealing with inequality across the G20. We actually came out with recommendations on inequality. There's this booklet here that's available on the Civil20 website. And in terms of the various working groups, we also came up with recommendations that were considered during the Sherpa meeting in June and led to a meeting with President Putin at the end of the Civil20 meeting, where it was promised that these recommendations would actually be reviewed at the G20 summit in St Petersburg. So, is there a role for civil society within the G20 process? Well, it's quite controversial, because across the G20 there are many organizations, especially, let's say, from BRICS countries, that view the G20 as an extension of the G8, and by taking part of it and participating, it's only giving them further legitimacy. So that is actually quite a controversial issue. But then in terms of civil society and its role, our governments across the G20 are making decisions that affect citizens across the G20, and it is important at some level to be able to engage our leaders in what they're saying. And I guess in terms of the value in our participation, I think at the end of the day, it's we've put across recommendations, and there is hope based in terms of our engagements in these different processes, the Sherpas meetings, and the recommendations that we've put forward to our leaders. So the proof will be, how much these issues are taken into consideration in St. Petersburg, and also looking at it as a longer process, because one of the bigger achievements we view is that, this was a launch and it has been a pilot. There have been many challenges in terms of civil society organizing. It's been very complicated, getting consensus in terms of these recommendations. But it's now already looking towards the next G20, looking at a longer plan. And what was announced by the Australian government is that there will be a Civil 20 in the next year, and at least we'll be able to learn in terms of the challenges that we are trying to address and how to make it a better engagement in the future.